I'm waiting for the light. No light? All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Board of Adjustments, Wednesday, February 26th, 2025. And I do not see anybody in the audience that might be here for any other business than what's on our agenda for today. So first order is going to be taking a look at minutes of November 20th, 2024.
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the minutes as presented for Wednesday, November 20th, 2024.
I second that.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. So minutes of November 20th, 2024 are approved. I see no old business. We have some new business. And I'll just remind us that the Board of Adjustments is a quasi-judicial body, and actions made here being final. But any actions made can also be appealed to the Madison County Court clerk within 30 days of this board's action. And let's see, do you want to get sworn in and give an oversight for us, overview? Thanks.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, thank you. All right, so this evening we're looking at the property at 122 Johnson Road. I have it highlighted in purple on the aerial map. What we will be considering is a conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit in an R1 zone. So I want to just first update the board to tell you that in 2024, the city updated our land management and development ordinance to allow for accessory dwelling units in certain residential zones. We determined through that public hearing process and adoption process that those would be conditionally permitted, meaning, as you all know, we really look at those on a case-by-case basis. But in that update to that LMDO, we defined accessory dwelling unit as a dwelling unit that is a separate, complete housekeeping unit located on the same lot as the principal or primary dwelling. ADUs shall provide the basic requirements of shelter, heating, cooking, and sanitation. ADUs may either be detached, so standalone, or above an accessory structure, or attached, so in a basement or an addition. In this particular case, we're looking at an addition to the primary structure. And shall be on the same main electrical and water service as the primary structure. And what I would like to do at this time is let the applicant's representative speak on her behalf, and then I have a list of items that we have identified as these are areas that the board should consider in accessory dwelling units.
Thank you very much, man. So yeah, would you like to come up and we'll, since this is an official meeting, we'll have you sworn in. And, yeah, you have to go up to the mic. Thank you. And give your name.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name, please.
My name is Bruce Lawson. This is my hometown. I was born here in 1962 and grew up here. I currently live in Lexington. You need my address?
No, we don't.
Okay,
do that.
okay, I'll put that on the thing. And my girlfriend, Mary Owens, lives here in Berea and is making this request. And I have a letter that she has written that I would like to read to you. Okay? To the Berea Board of Adjustment. I purchased the property at 122 Johnson Road 17 years ago, and I fully intend to retire there. I love Berea and now need to bring my sister here so I can help care for her. I've tried unsuccessfully to find affordable housing in Berea. She lives on a fixed income of $1,000 a month and can't afford the rents that have risen to their current levels here. Living on the Gulf side of southern Florida for the past 37 years, she has lung disease that requires a nurse to come to her house once a week to give infusions. It's possible for her to leave the house on oxygen, but she doesn't ever drive outside of her town of Venice. Her condition causes extreme fatigue, and she is also a high fall risk. 4 months ago, Hurricane Milton arrived in the Gulf. The National Weather Service used the term unsurvivable in their warnings and predicted it to hit her coastal town of Venice, which is just a little bit south of Tampa, just like Hurricane Helene did 10 days prior. The state was under evacuation orders, and while 7.5 million people packed onto I-75, I got on the road in Berea and went to get her. It was over 17 hours before we could finally get out of the car just outside of Atlanta. After 10 days, the power in her town was restored, trees were cleared from the roads, and it was safe to go down and see how much damage was done to her house. She was fortunate this time. Her house wasn't flooded as before, and the damage was confined to the outside of the house, the fences, her roof, shed, a lanai porch, trees, some trees had fallen down. I'm with her now in Florida in the process of packing up her house to help her sell it, then move her north so that I can take care of her before the hurricane season begins again in June. We have no wish to face one more hurricane or one more evacuation in the middle of a statewide panic. I'm looking for a conditional use permit that will allow me to attach an accessory dwelling unit to my house so she can live close enough to me that I can get to her quickly if she needs help. My builder has taken down my 24 by 24 foot deck that had been attached to the back side of the house, and I'd like to put her unit in that space. The drawing of the space has been provided, which shows a kitchen, living room, bathroom, and bedroom. Also shown are the firewalls and the fire door that will allow me to get to her space when needed. The septic tank has been a key issue with the project. My house originally had 3 bedrooms, but as the smallest of these was never used as a bedroom in the 17 years I've lived in the house, the closet has been closed off with sheetrock and is now accessible only by the bedroom on the other side of its wall. Having 2 usable bedrooms in the house and 1 in my sister's space brings me back to a total of 3 bedrooms using a 1,000-gallon septic tank. The tank was drained in 2023 by A&A Sanitation, who confirmed the size of the tank at that time. The addition will be nearly invisible to others as the green giant bushes I've been planting over the years now give the space a great deal of privacy. As the town of Berea continues to grow, there is a need for more affordable housing, especially for older people on fixed incomes, such as Social Security. While that is currently unavailable, I am requesting a much-needed conditional use permit. I thank you for your consideration of my request, Mary Owens. And I do have a Google Map aerial photo of it, and I took some photos around ground level that I could show you as well of the actual space.
Maybe pass them, yeah, you want to look at them?
I drew some black arrows here, which in the picture, the deck is still standing. And if you want to see my pictures, I'll go ahead and show them to you.
And I see all notices have gone out, and there's been a paper notice as well. Did we get any electronic?
We have
Feedback.
not.
Okay.
So all notices were sent as required, and we have not heard anything from those notices. In terms of, I think Ms. Owens had planned to be here, but is currently sitting with her sister in Florida and was just unable to make the trip. I will say on her behalf that she has been working with our office for a long time to try to get to this point. You know, us having to rewrite the regulations to make some provisions for accessory dwelling units. You know, she started looking into this about that time that we were preparing those regulations, and just due to the extent that we updated our land management and development ordinance, that process just was very lengthy. So I will say it's a project they've considered for quite some time, hope to do. We finally just got to the point where we really have put some regulations on how to handle them. So I will just mention to you things that I have in looking at accessory dwelling units and looking at other cities' regulations on them, things that I have identified as important things for us to recognize. The first would be density. So generally speaking, our regulations allow for 1 residence per quarter acre. They do have an acre here. So, you know, we're looking at still not exceeding our density requirements with this project by building another single-family residential dwelling unit on this lot. Parking was another thing that I identified. You know, when we look at adding people to spaces, now we've got to allow for parking provisions. So I will show you what is currently on the tract of land. So a long driveway here, some additional parking here off of Golden Head Drive. Looks like they already have a few spaces over here, and then again a long driveway where they could have stacking spaces. We did not put this restriction. I think it's kind of a generalized thing, an assumption that your accessory dwelling unit would be smaller than your primary unit. So in this particular case, the primary residence is about 1,700 square feet, and the addition is 576, so about a third, less than a third of the size of the primary structure. Our building inspector has worked with their contractor to make sure that they understand Kentucky residential code requirements for a fire partition. So Kentucky Building Code tells us that when we have 2 dwelling units, we have to fire separate those. Our building inspector has worked with their contractor to make sure that that gets in place. That was mentioned in the letter. So that's something that we will look at through the permitting process if this is approved. Setbacks.
A question on that.
Uh-huh.
I see there is a accessible door. Is that between the proposed accessory? Okay.
It is.
Anything
So-
special with the door?
Yeah, it has to have a rated door there. It likely will be, in this particular case, probably a more special order door or a more commercial looking door because of the rating that will be required there. But again, all steel door made for that purpose. Setbacks, so the R1 zone requires 25 feet on the side property line, and they are proposing 25. So we meet that required setback. And then the last I will mention that I saw in some other communities is owner occupancy. I would just leave this up to the board, but I think one condition that could be provided would be that it would have to be, to meet the conditional use permit, have to be owner occupied, meaning the owner would need to live in the primary residence. In this case, we know that that's the intention, is that she lives in the primary dwelling, and the sister is, in the accessory dwelling. What I think is important about that is not how they are intending to use it, but future owners of that property. What we don't intend to say is you have to tear it down, right? If they sell the house, you have to tear that off. That's not really the intention of it. I think the intention of it would be accessory dwelling units are really meant to provide generational living, and they are meant to provide a space for someone in your family. I think the intent would be to try to avoid a duplex being grandfathered in the future with that, meaning that the house sells. Anyone who does a title search sees the land use restriction that says that it must be owner occupied to be able to rent out, for someone else to occupy that as a separate dwelling unit. But all in all, as a staff recommendation, we think that this looks like what they're supposed to, what we actually anticipated accessory dwelling units doing.
So Amanda, when we make a motion in this, what kinds of things do we need to include in the motion?
So I think the two things that I would look at is one, do you think there is ample parking as it is? And if there is, then probably nothing needs to be done on that part. The owner occupancy, I think, would be the one thing that I would recommend from a staff perspective as a condition, that the primary dwelling would have to be owner occupied.
Okay.
And again, that's certainly at your discretion, just trying to look at down the road a little closer.
I guess another question then, down the road in 20 years when they sell this, do we think that this unit may become like an Airbnb, right?
So I think that's what the owner occupancy does. Is
Okay.
it at least allows for, the intent was given by the city for this to be used exactly the way they plan to use it. So I think in that case, they would have to come in, get a conditional use permit for the short-term rental. I think that's a whole separate matter. They would have to come before the board to get that permission.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what would, so if there's a conditional use for this accessory dwelling that is approved with a criteria being that there be an owner occupancy, and somebody buys it and they decide not to owner occupy,
It would come back before the board,
Okay.
right? And I think at that point, we make that decision
kind of,
to, again, what we do, I don't think what we would want to do is ask people to tear it off.
right.
Right? Can it be retrofitted back to a single-family residential? That's an option. Could it be that it maybe even deters someone from buying it who intends to be the landlord and to rent it out as a duplex?
Yep.
Because again, the zoning just does not allow for duplex, which is where the accessory dwelling units get a little unclear.
And back to your point, just for interest in understanding, you said that the utilities had to be shared?
They do.
So that includes the septic as well? Or-
Yeah, so in this particular case, we said in our definition, we named electric and water.
I see.
The reason for that is the water company for a single-family dwelling won't set more than 1 meter, right? So it became a little problematic in just a utility, how they operate business, how they conduct business. The other is, again, we don't really want to intend to set it up as a duplex to be sublet, or where this side pays the bills, this side, where each side pay their own bill. It's really meant, again, more of a deterrent, right, for future zoning, so that we're saying, okay, this person is always going to maintain control. The primary residence will always maintain control of the electrical bills, of the water bills, of the disconnects for each of those, so that we're not actually constructing two separate dwelling units
So
in
the-
their entirety in an R1 zone.
So that's already covered, that wouldn't have to be,
That's already covered, right? Mm-hmm.
all right, any other questions, or a move for a motion?
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the conditional use request for an accessory dwelling use in an R1 zone on Johnson Road, 122. And also that the owner must live in the primary residence.
Any thoughts on that, any feedback? I guess one thought I've had is it, does it really matter which unit the primary would live in, or?
They would have to live in the primary residence, wouldn't they,
Okay.
Amanda?
I mean, we can do that.
I feel like that would be the intent.
Okay, all right,
Would be for the owner to live in the primary,
All right.
and then again, the accessory unit used for a child, a mother, a
Yeah.
family member who,
okay. All right, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
All in favors?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries, and this is for the approval of a conditional use request for an accessory dwelling in an R1 zone at 122 Johnson Road. And that condition is, the requirement is to have the owner occupy the primary dwelling of that location. Great. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Good luck, and yeah, hope things go well with the move and getting out of Florida.
Definitely, that's gonna be a big job.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes, sir.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?